Time for a Talltale short. Crestwood was a town of simple pleasures, home to an indefatigable girl named Millie with jet-black hair and a sunny smile that could brighten any cloudy day. Across from her lived Mr. Francis, a curmudgeonly old man whose face was etched with a permanent scowl that could scare off even the sternest librarian. Every day, Millie walked past Mr. Francis's dull old house on her way to school. As she passed, she often saw Mr. Francis peering out the window, sorrow in his eyes that tugged at her heartstrings, stirring memories of her beloved grandfather. In his loneliness and bitterness, Millie saw a challenge to bring a bit of joy to this gruff old man's life. Days rolled into weeks, and Francis maintained his routine, peering out the window with a look so stern it could turn a mug of piping hot coffee cold. Millie, ever the optimist, hatched a secret plan. Inspired by her grandfather's love for gardening, each night, under the cover of darkness, she began to sow seeds of cheer in Francis's barren yard. She planted marigolds and petunias, their vibrancy a stark contrast to the gray home behind them. However, Francis tore them out every time, his heart wrenching at the sight of the beautiful flowers, evoking memories of his lost wife who loved to garden. As spring turned to summer, Millie's determination didn't waver. One night, as she was planting, she heard a curious old melody wafting from Mr. Francis's house, a tune that reminded her of her grandfather. Glancing through the window, she observed a music stand. Propped next to it was an old violin and a photograph of a radiant woman. "Now this is the real Mr. Francis," she thought, an idea beginning to bloom within her. The next evening, transforming Mr. Francis's yard into her canvas, Millie arranged her plants to form a beautiful floral score, mirroring the melody she'd heard. With dirty hands and a tired sigh, Millie stepped back from her handiwork. "Perfect," she thought to herself. "If this doesn't melt that cold heart, I don't know what will." As the sun rose, Mr. Francis awoke to prepare his daily cup of instant coffee. Peering out the window, he saw the notes from his wife's favorite song portrayed in an array of colorful blossoms in his yard. "No, no, no," he exclaimed, moving toward the door faster than he had in years. The pain of his wife's memory was too much. He couldn't be reminded of it by these silly flowers. Millie watched, heartbroken from afar, as Mr. Francis went to the yard and stomped the flowers into the ground. Defeated, she retreated to her house. "I guess there's no changing some things," she whispered to herself. But Millie's persistent efforts had begun to stir something within the old man. That evening, he sat in his favorite chair and glanced at his violin and the portrait of his lost wife. All the beautiful memories of a well-lived life full of adventure and love crept into his mind. As he thought about the flowers in his yard, Millie's floral symphony slowly turned his grief into memories, not of his loss, but of the love he had shared with his wife. The next day was the annual Crestwood Fair, a day that also marked Francis's late wife's birthday. As the town bustled with excitement, an unexpected sound echoed across the square. It was the haunting melody of a violin, drawing people towards it. The source, emerging from his house for the first time in many years, was Francis, his violin cradled lovingly in his hands. He played the melody that had bloomed in his yard, his notes filling the air with raw emotion. The townsfolk listened, their hearts touched by the unexpected performance. As the final note hung in the air, Francis glanced at Millie. The softest hint of a smile crept onto his weathered face, a small tear welling up in his eyes. "The flowers, they weren't half bad, kid," he grumbled, his eyes meeting hers. This was a Talltale short, small but mighty stories, released daily in audio format. Create, read, and share more tales at talltale.co.